If you want to feel more calm, confident, and connected in your life, the Love Your Real Life membership is for you. Members love the simple daily challenges that help create small, consistent actions that lead to the change that they want. And then the live sessions that are throughout the month that leave them feeling grounded, relaxed, and supported. There's a link in the show notes to join. I would love to see you inside of this membership. Welcome to the Love Your Real Life podcast. I'm Faith Lauterbach, and this is a space to help you heal, rebuild, and create a life you truly love, even if it looks different than you imagined. Each week, I'll be sharing tools, encouragement, and real conversations about what it means to move forward after betrayal, heartbreak, or simply life not going as planned. I am honored to walk alongside you and help you love your real life. Well, hello and welcome back to the show. Last week, we talked about self-love and how building a relationship with ourselves is the foundation of the love and relationships that we have with others. If you didn't catch that one, you can check it out after you listen to today's episode, but it's a really important one. So if you haven't listened, please take a listen. Today, we're going to move into something that can feel really scary. So we're going to be talking about dating again after experiencing betrayal or heartbreak, or maybe just a long time since you've been single and you're going to be getting back out there. It can be scary, especially if you have experienced something like infidelity or really deep heartbreak. The idea of dating again can bring up a lot. You might be feeling like you want connection, but also feel very scared. You might feel curious, but also really guarded. And you might feel ready in some ways, but not ready in a lot of other ways. So, no, whatever you're feeling, there's nothing wrong with you if dating feels complicated. I'll tell you a little bit about my experience where I told myself over and over again I was not going to ever be in a relationship again. So when I actually started dating, I thought that it was going to just be like, I'll go on dates with people, but I will not ever let that turn into a relationship. I was really detached. Now, I'm not saying that that's 100% healthy, but that is where I was. And I think I was in a little bit of survival and protective mode. And that was okay because it got me through what I needed to get through until I was actually ready, until I met the person that I would be ready to really put myself out there, to be in a relationship, to trust again. When you trust somebody, especially after something like betrayal, where you really get that trust shattered in ways that you don't think you can ever put it back together, it's really, really hard and really scary. And so I thought the best way to do that was just to never even be in that situation again. But I also was really interested in what it meant to go on a date with somebody. I have shared this before, but in my first marriage, I had pretty much dated that same person since I was 15. So I really had never had a traditional dating experience, or I didn't even really know what that could be like. And so maybe you can relate if you've been in that same situation, or maybe just been in a relationship for a long time. It feels like, what am I doing to take that step of go on dates? So for me, I decided that I would use some of the dating apps and set up a profile and first just get really comfortable just chatting with people in that way. And then I started going on dates with people, and it was such a wild experience. It was such a wild experience. Again, I was going into the situation without the desire to have a relationship. And so I came into the situation kind of detached, very I don't know if the right word, unneedy. Like I didn't want to have a second date. So I was just very present, asking questions, just being very curious. Because to me, it felt like an experiment of how can I just like get to know this person right here, right now, and not even worry or put any pressure on anything else. And so I had a really great experience of doing this exact thing. I just thought I'll be here in this moment. I kept things very separate and again, very detached because that's how I felt. I felt like I am detached from my heart or I'm protective of my heart. I'm not going to let anything hurt me again. And so I'm just in it for this moment. I don't know if that's making sense or if anybody can relate with that, but that is how my dating life started. I did have at the time a private Facebook group. I had a select, very few handful of girlfriends that were in this group, and I would let them know I'm going to be going on this date at this time at this place with this person. And I would share a picture of the person, their profile, all those things, so that if they didn't hear from me, um, they kind of knew what was going on. Because again, I was on my own. It was a very, kind of surreal experience, one that I had not experienced before. And so that's kind of the setup of how I started this experience. Now, if you know me, you know that I am married. Again, I have been married now for, let's see, we got married in 2019. And so, yeah, it's 2026. So, what is that? 7 years this year. So, obviously, I didn't stay in that protective, detached mode, but that is where I started. And so, I want to tell you that if you are curious about dating again, but are also scared, you don't have to do it perfectly. There's no perfect way. I think it's really about like what last episode was about of that self-love, like working on yourself intensely, I think is so important before you start dating again because you want to be practicing self-love. Not that that's ever perfect, but when you are intentionally working on it and setting yourself up to be loved and have a good relationship with yourself, that will help you in this process. So I feel like that is a foundation before you start dating again. In order for it to be healthy, in order for it to be healing, work on yourself. And I'm not saying you have to get to this starting point where you're like, I love myself, but being in the process of taking those actions, of knowing it's important, knowing yourself, listening to yourself, having moments of self reflection so that you can check in with yourself, know your values, and not compromise those for anybody. So that's a little kind of personal side note of my experience of starting to date. Okay. So I kind of alluded to this, but dating again isn't just dating, especially if you've been through something really hard in your previous relationship. It's not just meeting someone new, it's learning how and when to trust again. And you might be questioning everything. You might be questioning your judgment, your instincts, whether this person is safe, whether it's worth the risk. And so that's another reason why doing this work and continuing to do this self work on building a relationship with yourself is so important because the more you know yourself, the more you know that inner voice, then you know that you can check in with yourself about your instincts and your judgment. You can build those things up so that you can trust others. It's impossible to trust others if you don't trust yourself. Just like it's impossible to love others if you don't love yourself. So just know, thinking of dating, if it feels scary, that makes sense. That is normal. You are normal. You're not broken. You've just lived life and you've learned things and you've been hurt. It's like once you know that pain, you know that it's possible. And so I think that's one of the things that's so scary, especially if the relationship you were hurt in previously was with somebody that you deeply trusted. So just know this is normal to feel this way. So I think what's more important than asking yourself, am I ready? Because you can always go back and forth on that. You can probably name a million reasons why you're not ready to date right now. I guess what I think is more important is getting clear on what you want. Okay. And if those reasons that you want to date are clear and feel good to you, then it's worth getting out there and giving it a try. Because knowing why you want to do something is really important. It's way more important than asking if you're ready. Why do I want to date right now? And so sometimes maybe it's we want to ease loneliness, prove we're lovable, distract us. Um, and I feel like those are human desires. But if we put the weight of the answers of those things on another person, we can really get into trouble, get hurt. We can set ourselves up for more pain because that can feel urgent and desperate, right? So, going back to that self love, when we have that relationship with ourselves, we are able to date from wholeness, not from needing something to make us whole. So, being whole with yourself before you're dating is so important. And I think just giving yourself permission. You don't have to rush. You don't have to be fearless. You don't have to be fully healed in order to do this. But it is important to be connected with yourself before you do it. You're allowed to move slowly enough to feel safe. Healthy love or healthy dating doesn't demand urgency and this desperation. It really is about being respectful to yourself. And when you're respectful to yourself, you're giving an example of what that looks like. And so others are going to be respectful of you too. I guess I'll say that when my current husband and I started dating, um, we met very naturally. We did not meet on an app. We actually met at the gym. And when we started dating and going on dates, which I'm really excited, he's going to be on the episode next week. And we're going to talk a little bit more about how this kind of thing impacts the other person when you start dating. But I'll tell you a little bit is just knowing that healing doesn't mean that you're never going to have triggers show back up, that you're never going to be scared, that you're never going to question or be fearful. It means that you're learning how to respond to those things with compassion instead of judgment. When we started dating, and we together were very open about what we were feeling, what we were thinking, and I was not interested in playing games or any of that stuff. We were very just honest and upfront with each other about what we needed to be, and the things that we were feeling, the fears, all of those things. I'll tell you, it was like a very exciting time in my life when Seth and I started dating because I just felt like I had never felt the things that I was feeling. But on the other hand, it was very scary because I knew that I could get hurt again because of how much I liked him when we started dating. And then that obviously turned into love. But I knew that that potential was there for me to get hurt again. And so it was this very scary and exciting feeling all in once. And I think just knowing that this is normal to feel these things, this is a normal way. It doesn't mean anything's wrong. It just means that you have been through something and something you don't want to necessarily go through again. And so you're starting to kind of put up these walls, but figure out how to take them down. I remember telling Seth at the very beginning, and I just try to be very upfront, like, I have a lot of walls up, and I know I do. And I don't know how long it's going to take for those walls to come down. And so kind of like almost giving him a warning, like, if you're going to get into a relationship with me, you have to know that there's some walls up, and I am going to try to work through those, but also I don't know how long they'll be there. And he was very understanding and very compassionate with all of that. And when those walls did show up, he was respectful of those. I think learning how to date while staying connected to yourself is a really important thing to do. So instead of thinking about things like, oh, do they like me? I think the question is, do I like how I feel when I'm with them? How does my body feel when I'm around this person? Do I feel more like myself or do I feel like I have to pretend that I'm somebody else? Here's a big one. Are their actions consistent? Do the things they say match with what they do? And I watched that very, very carefully with Seth. I watched for a while of, is what he's saying matching what he's doing? And that was really important because I needed to know what he said was the same thing as what he did. I didn't want somebody that could just sweet talk me or say all the right things. I needed someone who was authentically the same person, whether they were with me or not. And I think another question is, do you feel emotionally safe being honest? You know, I didn't try to sugarcoat anything with Seth. Like, I just was honest. I don't know, how old was I? 39 or something. I had no room in my life to play games. I was not interested in that. And I was fine being single. And so what I said to him was just like, not just said, but with my words and actions, was just like, I don't want to play games. So I am going to be just completely honest with you. I'm not going to like play this chase, blah, blah, blah game or say things that I don't mean. Like, I just wasn't interested in any of that. And he wasn't either. And so that worked out really nice. But I felt emotionally safe being honest with him. And I think that was so important. I could tell him how I was thinking and feeling. If I had fears come up, if I had things come up that felt activating or triggered, which we'll talk about some of those next week when I interview him, he responded with care and compassion, not judgment or defensiveness. So that was so important. And I think that was the case for all of the dates that I went on during this time. Before Seth and I started dating, and I was dating more of the like on the apps and just just kind of getting to know myself and figure out how to even date people. I was very honest with every single person that I went out with that I was not looking for a relationship, that I just wanted to experience dating. And I feel like I want to show up as the same person in every single relationship and every single experience in my life. I'm not one person when I'm talking to someone else versus when I'm talking to another person. I want to be authentically me all the time. And so taking that in while I was dating people mattered. I was honest with people. I let them know where I was at and what to expect. I didn't want to give anybody the wrong impression, or, again, I didn't want to play games with anybody. So just to know that being clear with why you're dating, having regular check ins with, for me, journaling to process what was happening, what was I feeling. Again, knowing it's okay to take a break, it's okay to slow things down, it's okay to change your mind. You know, listening to yourself is self love, listening to and knowing yourself. And when you do that, you show up with authenticity in your relationships or with your dates. And that will help you to know, is this person going to be a healthy connection for me or not? Because you know your intuition, you know how to listen to yourself, you know your real voice. So just knowing that, reframing as these thoughts may come up, like, I hope this works. coming from a place of I trust myself to take care of myself no matter what happens. That is showing up with self-love. I trust myself to take care of myself no matter what happens. Because when you are dating again, there's no guaranteed outcome. I mean, really in life, we don't have any guaranteed outcomes, but especially then, right? You know, but staying aligned with yourself and who you are along the way will help you show up strong, will help you show up with compassion for yourself and for with other people. But to know and trust yourself in this process is huge. I hope that this episode feels helpful. To reframe, I want to say before you start dating, make sure that you are working on you, that you are working on knowing yourself, bringing self-love and compassion into your life, that you are having some kind of practice of reflecting and checking in with yourself, whether that's through journaling, coaching, therapy, maybe all three. All three of those things are great. Um, Listen to yourself, know yourself, and pause, let go of urgency, let go of desperation, and be clear about why you're dating. Be clear about that. If you're dating just because you feel lonely or because you need outside validation, those are reasons that could end up with you showing up not the way you want to show up. So that, working on that self-love and relationship with yourself is so, so important. And just know, you can always change your mind. You can always take a break. You can always slow things down. Show up first with your self-love and self-compassion, and the people who are supposed to be in your life are going to be there. When you are authentic, when you are the same person in all areas of your life, that is going to help you attract the people that are meant to be there. Dating again after betrayal, after heartbreak, after not being single for a long time, it takes courage. And you don't owe anyone a love story. You're allowing yourself to believe that love might still exist. And there is something very special about that. Whether you're dating right now, or whether you're thinking about dating right now, whether you are dating right now, just know that you are worthy of safe love. You are worthy of someone who's going to show up for you. And you get to move at the pace that feels right for you. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode about dating again. Next week, we are going to have a real treat. I will be interviewing my husband about kind of all of these things and about his perspective. What is it like for the other person when you are going into a new relationship after experiencing infidelity in your previous relationship? How does that impact the other person? And what are some ways that we have shown up and made sure to be honest and open and communicate with each other when we need to? So tune back in for that. If you haven't listened to last week's episode on self-love, please go take a listen. Thanks so much for joining me. We're going to talk soon. Thank you so much for listening to the Love Your Real Life podcast. I hope that today's episode was just what you needed. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you're looking for more support, check out the show notes for how to connect. Remember, no matter what your story holds, you are worthy of living a life that you love. Talk to you soon.